What's good, everybody? Happy Tuesday going into the holiday week. Let's take a look at the markets today. The Dow was actually lower on the day by 37. The S&P lost 8. The Nasdaq was off 30. That was your worst performer of the day, was the Nasdaq. And most of it was because the tech stocks were a little weak. Why were they a little weak? Well, let's go over to the charts and take a look here. We have, first up is Apple. Apple was down about 1% today. They were downgraded. Very rare downgrade for Apple. An analyst company named Nomura, I can never say that name. They analyzed the stock. One of their analysts came out and said, here's the thing. They think that new iPhone X super cycle, as they call it, is already baked into this price. They said, you know what? The current price of the stock wrapped around 174.54 is the fair value considering all of the new iPhone X expectations and what they may do over the holidays. I don't know if that's too accurate. I'm going to go on record and say that this iPhone X was not a big as hit as maybe most had predicted. However, look, it's $1,000 for this phone. How can you bake that into the price? At what point did the price move strong enough to bake that in there? I'm not an analyst. I'm just saying I think any positive news out of that iPhone X is good news for Apple. But today, investors took the time to sell the stock. Doesn't matter. Stock's up 50% on the year, so they can afford a 1% down day. Let's move on to Darden Restaurants, DRI. Now, you may not recognize the name here, but these are the guys that own Olive Garden and LongHorn Steakhouse as well. No, they spun off Outback. So they own Olive Garden, LongHorn Steakhouse. I'm sure you've heard of those restaurants. Look at the stock today, blasting off to new highs. The stock itself was up 6.79%, racing for that $100 number. Here's the thing. They announced earnings, and basically, where's the wording? I got to find the wording on this for you. So these earnings came in better than expected. What happens if you're not familiar with what this is? Every quarter, a company reports their earnings. Now, all of those analysts that I was just talking about, they come up with a number that they think the company will make. And they'll say, I think they're going to make $1 per share. And so then the company comes out with their earnings and they says, guess what? We made $1 per share. Or sometimes they say, hey, we made only 50 cents per share, and that's a big deal. The stock will usually take a hit. In this case, they came out, they were expected to make 71 cents a share, and they did better than what Wall Street, all those analysts had predicted. So that's good news. If the best and brightest people on the planet think you're going to make this much, and it turns out you ended up making more, well, that's good news. So the stock shot up about 7% today. The company said the reason why they beat the earnings estimates was because of positive store traffic. That just means more people went to Olive Garden and LongHorn and some of their other restaurants as well. But they put it cleverly, they said pricing improvements was also another reason for the beat. And pricing improvements is just code word for saying we jacked up the prices on everybody. They still came to the stores. They still spent money in Olive Garden, and therefore we made a bigger profit. So Darden Restaurants doing pretty good. For the year, it's up 33%. Okay, and lastly, we'll take a look. You may not have heard of this company, Jack in the Box. Of course you've heard of Jack in the Box, but here's the thing. The stock was higher today by 3% because they finally agreed to get rid of Qdoba. It's that Chipotle-esque kind of restaurant chain that they have. You know, Chipotle they've been struggling. Qdoba's been struggling big time, and all the investors, everybody wanted them to get rid of this product, find someone to buy it, just offload it to somebody, and they finally decided to do that today. Apollo Global Management, private equity firm, they're going to take this company over. Qdoba, not Jack in the Box. They're going to take over Qdoba only for $305 million, and that's all cash. They basically just wrote a check, said, we'll take Qdoba from you for $305 million. That was seen as a good deal for Jack in the Box because they can finally get out from under that and start working on what they're good at. Jack in the Box, right? So anyways, that's stocks for the day. That's what's happened in the market. You know, it was sort of a quiet day. The morning was a little more active, but we're getting that holiday volume now where the market kind of picks where it wants to go and then essentially stays there and doesn't do much for the rest of the day. One other thing I should point out, tax reform. tax reform, and I'm not calling it a tax reform. I'm not calling it tax overhaul. It's just a tax update, in my opinion, because I was promised I was going to do my taxes on a postcard. I was promised that all of this was going to be a lot easier. I wouldn't need TurboTax. I wouldn't need that expensive accountant that I have. But apparently that's not true. I must have misunderstood what they were debating about in all the elections. So the tax adjustment passed the House today. That doesn't mean it's official. It doesn't mean it's going. Now the Senate has to vote on it. It is expected that they're going to pass that. However, that will be closer. Today's vote in the House, not a big deal. Everybody expected that to pass. The Senate, the vote is expected to be much closer. We'll see what happens. That's going to come up. And remember what I said. I'm telling you, they are going to vote this whole thing through with all the adjustments and all those little things that you find out you're going to have to pay more for Friday. Friday will be the day that they do this at the very last possible moment when you are on a plane off to grandma's house. They're going to vote. You're going to come back, do your taxes, and go, what happened? Why am I paying so much? But anyways, enough talk about that. That's the markets for the day. Hope you enjoyed. Turns out the markets can show red. They can go down. So we'll see what happens tomorrow. Expect more lighter volume, very slow moving markets. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this, leave me a comment. Let me know what you like, what you don't like. This is an ever-evolving market update, willing to share anything that you think might be helpful, except for Bitcoin. I'm probably not going to talk much about Bitcoin. Anyways, thanks for watching. Have a great day.